that. And I'm going to shift over here so the camera's over the project. So I have these little sea turtles. I thought they would be fun. They're really simple. It'll be a nice, easy, simple project tonight, which is a nice sometime. I did it on the back of this denim jacket. I've done it. I sold all of them except for this little canvas at the little show I did a while back. And I just painted them. I don't know if you saw my segment where I painted them on the glasses, which I brought these to the event too that I did. And I sold a lot of the glasses. So you can paint them on anything. They're really pretty simple. I'll show you how quick. Now, I know decoratively you could paint all kinds of colors on their shells. I stuck with the turquoises, but remember, you could, if you like purples and pinks and whatnot, you don't have to make them look exactly like a real turtle because these are very stylized as they are. So remember, you could do some different colors too, which would be kind of cool.
They're really cute.
Thank
They
you.
are.
They were, the first time I painted them, I thought, oh, this is a pain in the neck. But then I did like a dozen of them at a time and I kind of got it down to a little process. So if you are doing, sometimes getting ready for a craft fair or you want to do some for gifts, I lined up all these little squares and just did them all in a row and it really went quickly.
Is that like a little 4x4?
This one is, and I did them on 6x6s.
Uh-huh.
I am excited to paint a big one today because I'm bringing some things down to the shop in Anna Maria Island. So I think I'll bring this one down when I finish it. It's a very simple background, but I'm going to, this is another painting I did. This is a little bit more time intensive.
Oh, cute.
But I wanted to show you that you could go ahead and paint all kinds of little grasses and things if you wanted to get a little more intricate. I simply have little bits of waves, but there's all kinds of little just squiggles and just like seaweed and some, I put a couple starfish and coral in there.
Can you
These
post a picture of that one?
I will. I just found it when I went out looking in my box of goodies for something to show you tonight. So, oh, Dee's here. Good. I haven't seen Dee in a while. Excellent. Yeah, I'll post a picture of this, and if anybody wants a tracer of this guy, I could do that easily. So let me put that over here. And this is what we'll work on tonight. I did put glitter on my turtle, on the body and on the shell. I didn't do it on the water. And it's just this deco art, the twinkles, which I'm not a huge glitter person, but I do love putting it on the painting sometimes. And I even did it on the jacket. I don't know if you can really see. It's a little bit of sparkle on there. Hi, Dee. I was happy to see you popping on. It's nice to see you. I also did a little bit afterwards with some of the metallic paint. It's not terribly noticeable, but it gives a little bit of a sheen on some of these little waves here. So I do use a little bit sometimes of the Deco Art metallic. The other paint, let me put these aside and I will show you what I got out for paint for tonight. I'm gonna put this over here. And oh, at the end, and maybe more so on the jacket, the fabric, I did use a little bit of the these little slick paints on the jacket because I like to outline a little bit with them, but you can use them on a canvas too. So you could do something like that. I tend to like the ones that are iridescent because they're a little transparent, so you don't get a real harsh outline, you just get a little touch of it. So anywho, I have out my phthalo blue and green, which again makes all of the great turquoise colors. But I also have, you know, I do use some of the Deco Art turquoise. It's whatever you want, but if you want to keep it down to your primaries, you know, your basics, these two can make all sorts of lovely turquoises. Just my primary yellow. And I got black, Payne's gray, and some white. It's pretty much all we need, really. It's pretty limited. Unless, like I said, you want to go with some pinks and purples. I will try that when I'm painting another little grouping of these because I'd like to see them in some other colors. So let's jump in. Now, on the background I've used for my big, huge under the sea canvas even, I have found that with the white of the canvas, if I do kind of a lighter, more transparent blues and the white showing through is kind of a nice look. So we're going to just kind of do the background kind of loose. And then I just sort of, if you can see on here, how I just
Where you put the patches?
make this little, this little pattern
He
here
said he only has one.
to represent a little bit of
One pencil left. So I'm
of the
giving it.
waves and things, you know? So I'm gonna just use those colors. I really got out tiny bits of color, which generally I get out way too much paint and waste it, but I'm gonna need more for this big canvas, so I don't know what I was thinking. I'm gonna get a little more paint out. And I'm just gonna start with some turquoises and some blues. I think I'll even get a bigger square brush out. I think we lost Dee, but here she is again. And if you want to talk, just unmute yourself and just shout out any questions or comments. There's also the chat, which I could bring up if anyone is more comfortable just writing something in the chat here.
What size is your canvas?
I used 11 by 14.
Okay.
I just wanted it big enough so you could see it, but not too big that it would be off the screen. And I thought, I haven't done any really big ones, and so this will be kind of fun. I'm going to use the big flat brush. You could use any larger brush you have. I am going to mix up. I like to look at both of these because I think the jacket has a nice look to it too. So let me just kind of make some room here on my table. I'm going to mix up, you can see with this blue and this green, you could get a nice dark blue just as it is. Sometimes I want to have dark. I did add quite a bit of water to this. I have found when I want that little technique, it's almost watercolor. I like to see through to the white. I can always make it darker, but when I've gone to dark and a lot more coverage on something like this, it's hard to get that light glow back. Oh, let's get Kathy in here. I love seeing all you guys here tonight. That's great. I'm not going to worry too much about, I'm going to try to go around my turtle a little bit, but I want to keep kind of this sort of a flow going. And I thought maybe I'd see my writing, but I guess I'm not going to. So let me just get a quick little bit of this canvas covered. I'm going to give them a little outline, I think, real quick, so I don't lose. I can see them through the paint a little bit, but I don't want to lose all my tracing. So I'm going to just do a little bit like that real quick to start. Starting light so that I can layer on top of it too. So I'm adding a little water, getting that really almost like a watercolor look. Because look at the beautiful blue you get. If I added white to that, it would get a little bit, because you want to say, oh, I want to have a lighter shade. I'd rather do it with water on something like this than the white paint, because then it just gets kind of, I really want it opaque most times, but I don't want it really opaque this time. And just to use that up and down motion to get kind of like a feel for the waves. Kind of going to do it quick so I don't have that outline around them. I can kind of just bleed it out. I don't really want to have too much of the outline. You can see it there a little bit. So if you go just pretty quick, just to get a light, kind of a aqua blue on the background. And actually did leave some a little bit light areas there too showing. Now I'm going to get a little darker. So I'm going to go still with some water. It may be a little more blue. And I like the wet and wet because it's going to kind of just blend. And I can just even leave some of those stripes like that. When it dries, it gets a little lighter. But if it's too much of a, too solid, you could always just go in and blend a little bit. But I do like to kind of just go, I guess I'm trying to think of a word to describe this little shape. But I can do something like that. And then I almost go and do that kind of a thing. And I'm going to build it up a little more than this, but I really like to start with that really light see-through bit. I'm going to take a little yellow into that because that might give me kind of a, almost like a limey green. If you put it on something you don't like, dry off your brush and you can quickly kind of blend it in or even wipe it off. See here. Oh, I'm getting a little bit of that color in. Welcome everybody that's popping in. Kathy, I see you're just popping in, and two Kathys just popping in. You haven't really missed anything. I am just taking paint, really thinned, watered down, and just getting like kind of a little wave shape. I like the white of the canvas to show through for a little bit of this project. I have phthalo blue, phthalo green here, and I'm mixing it, and you see how what a nice turquoise that you can get. I can take a little white now if I want. I don't want to paint the whole thing, but I will go and just make some little lines like that. So I'm taking same brush, even though it's really wide, you can still use it on the chisel edge. I'm going wet into wet here. I'll do some when it dries to really have it show up. And it's just a matter for the background to get building up to be kind of like a little bit of a look like this. And actually, it's pretty simple. I don't have to be spending too much time on it. So I'm going to let that dry a little bit now because my color is just sort of blending in. Let's just let that dry a little bit. I'll rinse that brush off in the meantime. Any large brush you have, like I said, you could do that with. I just use this big flat. Any questions at all, or as we're going along, please ask, but did anybody have any questions? I know we're just getting started and everybody is in here now. Pam, did you have a question? You can unmute if you'd like. Oh, unmute. Oh, and Julie.
Yeah, okay, what did you do with the white?
I just took a little white now on my brush here and just, it was a dirty brush, so it came out to be not pure white. More chisel edge, and I just did these little shapes. We're gonna do
Okay.
more of them. This is pretty abstract in the background. You could almost do anything there. Just running the brush through without really anything on it almost removes some of the paint. And I just want that action of these little up and down kind of strokes. If I'm hitting my turtle, I really don't mind. I can reshape that. So welcome, Julie. Glad that you're here tonight. We've really just jumped in, so you haven't missed much at all. I'll just do a quick little recap for anybody who's just popping in while this dries. I have just a few colors, the phthalo blue and green, which I love for the teals they make. Little primary yellow, white, black. I have some Payne's gray out here. I like the shade with the Payne's gray. I really do like the Payne's gray. I try not to use black, and the black is out just to do the little eyeballs with, really. The Payne's gray is really a blue gray, and I love the way I can shade with it, but it's not really a dull black. So that's why I do tend to try to go towards Payne's gray a lot. Any questions for anybody that's new for materials and different things, please let me know. A big canvas like this, it's gallery wrapped. You could very well paint along the edge now with your teal colors. Like this one, I just did the edge. Sometimes I paint the edge black. I kind of like the lightness of this painting, so I think I will just do the edges. So let's let that dry a little bit, and it'll just give me a chance to kind of do the edges a bit. And you'll see, again, I just really watered down that paint. Doesn't it look like watercolor? But for under the sea, I just love the way it looks because of the white showing through. Rather than making up a light blue paint and painting it on, I'm just using a darker blue, but really watered down. So I'm gonna just do that on my edges, just what we did on the front. Oh, I'm just going straight along. I'm not worried about using the little strokes to get those waves. And I will put a little color on the side, maybe some greens and some darker blues. But for now, I just really just want to cover up the white of the canvas. And next week, we're going to do the little demo of the plein air painting. I know I've done some little shots here and there of my setup and what I do, but I'll give you a little process. It's not something that you have to really even just go out to plein air paint, which I encourage you to do, but you could just use the technique for paintings. It's just my way of getting a sketch on the canvas, getting a value study, and then once that hard work is done, it's really fun just to throw the color in. Sometimes I do that for some of my paintings. This one is more of a fun, whimsical painting, so I don't do that sort of thing here. But for instance, my Luna Moth painting and I think my orange painting, I did a little bit of that. So you'll get something, just to see a little bit of behind the scenes in the process for the plein air painting. I don't know if you saw my little house portrait I did the other day. Um,
Yeah, that turned out good.
Fun event, but I spent when you're plein air painting, you really only want to spend a couple hours. Really, you have to get in, get out fast. Light changes, temperatures change. But I was there all day because it was a house and I wanted to get all the little bits and pieces in. But it was really fun. It was a nice idea. I love house tours, and this was one where at each house there was 10 houses on the tour. On each one, they had an artist outside painting the house. So that was interesting for people.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and it's a fundraiser, so we didn't, we didn't really get a big paycheck for it, which is fine. We donated them to we got a small stipend. We donated them to the homeowners after, which is nice because those guys are putting up their home. It was 500 tickets sold, so there's people in traipsing through your house all day. So it was nice to give them a little something. So it was a great event, I thought. Okay, so now I might even, you could go to a smaller brush. I'm just going to do some more of this. I'm stumped at what to call this little shape, but I'm just kind of curving it and then intersecting the lines and
It's just a wavy look.
a wavy look. Yeah. I mean, you could certainly use a round brush if you want. I always tend to go to my square if I can. And I want to get some other colors in there now. So maybe I'll just take some of the white here. I don't want to do straight white at all, but maybe a little bit of a lighter blue or a teal. And I'm just going to do some of those lines. So this is very solid because if you add white to any paint, especially paint that's transparent, you get some nice coverage. So I kind of like the way it looks. It's very subtle. You hardly see it on the background. And I'll do some darker colors that you will see, but it's just subtle. Gives some motion to that. When you go down here and on the darker paint, look at how nice that looks. Paint's pretty thin too. I've added enough water so that I can do nice long strokes without having to go back and load my brush all the time. I'll do some dark ones. You can see up here it's lighter, it blends in, but it's still there. It's subtle. You can still see it. Down here, it's almost too bold in a perfect pattern. So I will go now and I'll just kind of layer on top of that maybe. So it's not just so eye-catching, I guess. So this is a dark blue, and I did keep the little bit of water in there. Lay it down on your canvas, see how it looks. If you want, you could always try it on the edge and say, oh, that's too dark, that's too blue, I'm not really loving it. You could try it on the sides. So I'm just going really started with the base of very washy background, but kind of my brush is going in those directions. And here I'm sort of doing the same directions, but the paint's getting a little bit more big, and sometimes the lines are thinner. Oh, it'd be nice to see Shelby. So this is the white here. I'm going to do a little bit of white actually. It's on a dirty brush, so it's not like a stark white that's jumping out at you. And just doing those little waves. And really, that's almost is all you need. I mean, I have to really sometimes myself have to learn to step back and just stop and don't keep fooling with it. Let's try a little bit of green because here I go. I will do this. Actually, not green, but this yellow. I love these. The Liquitex yellow I will use a lot of times as a glaze kind of afterwards. So that means just a clean brush, thin down, paint, just clean water on my brush, just a thin down. And if you go over some of your greens, it's amazing how it just brightens them up. We'll do it on the turtle bodies after, but I'm going to try it just like, I don't know that if you can really see that it's tough to see on the canvas, but it's just a very thin wash of yellow here and there. I don't mind that there's little bits of white of the canvas peeking through. I think that's enough. What I did, actually, you know what? See, I'm my own worst enemy. I've used the flat brushes and the flat brush on the chisel edge, but I think I want a couple just little finer lines. So I'm just going to use my my little liner brush, rigger brush, and just do a few that are really thin. I just like the variety. I like to keep things interesting and a variety in my painting so that your eye's not getting bored or you're gonna kind of do something a little unexpected. It's like all the same size with lines, and then you come in with something even heavier or lighter. You could do this with any color you want. Again, why I like to have all my colors on my palette and sort of blend at random, because then each time I get a slightly different color instead of mixing a perfect shade of light blue and making sure it's just so. I'd rather have them all a little different. Some of these you can hardly see because it's on the same tone. But I do like that idea of some thin lines here. So this is probably enough. That's plenty. Now I really am going to leave it alone. Hi, Shelby. Nice to see you tonight. Thanks for popping in. And here's where afterwards, if you wanted to, I'll let that dry a second. If you can see on the jacket, I don't know if you can see, but see a little bit of these heavier ones, these they're heavier. This is what I did is with the little slick paints, mostly the iridescents, like I said. Oh, there it is. I went and just, to give it some texture, and I just went and did some with these guys. And iridescent, if you're going to get them for a few paintings, I have the slick ones. They're very solid. I like the iridescent because it's transparent a little bit. It's not as in your face. So I did it with this mermaid color, and I also had a green that came in an iridescent here, if I can put my hands on it. But anyway, if you're going to buy a few, I would just buy the iridescent ones. Just, you only need a couple colors, and you can accent most anything with them. It just kind of gives it a little texture. So I will move that back, and that's probably something I wouldn't even do until the end, maybe see if I wanted to. But you know what I'm going to do real quick while I have my color out, because I don't really want to come back. I'm just going to do the same thing on, I know that's kind of close to the camera, but I'm just going to just do a little bit of this. I'm not getting as fancy as I did on the front, but I'm just going to just do a little bit of something on the side so it looks like it's finished. It just carries the design over to the back. And that will save me from having to paint, you know, a darker edge. Like sometimes I do like a dark edge, like a little frame almost. But on this, I want it to be light and whimsical. So I'm just taking all the colors on the palette and using those wavy strokes. And I think that's all we need, just to have it looked a little finished. And for anybody that just popped in, at the end, I'm going to give a little demo on wiring your paintings to hang. And so if you want to stick around, I will do that, and it will also be on the recording if you have to go. And it's going to be a quicker class tonight because these are so fun and easy and enjoyable. A little bit dark blue, and then I'll call that done. Okay, so now we just have our turtles. I'm going to work on their legs and head first, because they're all kind of the same, but then they're behind the shell. So we'll just pop the shell on top. I did a quick little turtle painting on the glasses on one of my lives, maybe last week. And someone told me that the turtle shell is called a scoot, which I had no idea, but I think it's kind of cute. So now I know what a turtle shell is called. Okay. Put that there. I'm going to start dark to light. You can see I shaded these guys kind of a little darker on the right side and a little brighter over on the left. Let me just base them with a bit of a green to start. And at least get the white of the canvas covered. Now this time I will be using the paint as it comes out of the bottle. I'm not going to be thinning it down. I want it to cover the white. And again, with these colors, just a little bit of green in that phthalo green and yellow, rather, you get a nice green, nice middle of the road green. So we just want to get a bright green. We'll start there on them. I lost a little of the shape there, but they're pretty easy. It's just a little shape, something like that. I'm going to put a little blue in there. I want it to be just a little darker, maybe. A little darker so I can get really bright. These guys have the little flippers kind of for their, instead of little arms and legs. Well, I don't think turtles have arms and legs, but anyhow. So what's everybody else been working on? What sort of projects are you doing? You working on any of the paintings or have some ideas of what you want to paint this spring and summer? Pam, you're doing a lot of little shows and things, right? So you've got,
Well, I've hooked up with a bi-monthly market. So it's the second and fourth Saturdays of the month.
is it like a farmer's
Oh,
market?
great.
No, it's actually a charity market
Okay,
where she picks a charity and 20% of what she makes on tables
yeah,
goes to the charity.
that's great, cause now you feel like you're, you know, doing something good, a nice, I love when I can do like something that goes for charity, cause I feel like I'm doing my part, but with something I love, so.
Exactly. So yeah, I'm real happy with it. And what I really like is the fact that my table butts up against some slat wall.
Oh, perfect, so you can hang things up,
Yeah, I hang things up.
nice. I'm just gonna fill these in. I can see the paint's very dull on this one. Sometimes I don't put a varnish on my paintings. But this looks really dull and I want it to be shiny, so I will put a varnish on it. And when I do,
Yes,
I-
ma'am.
what's that? If you need me. I use just a water-based varnish. I get it at the hardware store. It's polycryl. It's Minwax polycryl. I buy it in, actually I have got the can right here. I can show it to you. I pour it out of this into a smaller container that's easier to use, but it dries quick. It's a nice sheen. You can get satin or gloss. This is satin. And it protects things that may be going outside. I use it if I paint a mailbox or a slate or something that's going outside. And it lasts a long time. So this one will get some varnish because I think it needs to be a little shinier. Sometimes it brings the colors out. The shells will get shiny when we put the glitter on. That gives it a little shine. The twinkles glitter, that actually gives it a nice finish too. All right, so I am just, again, dipping into my paint, so it's not always light or dark. It varies, which I think makes things look a little more natural. I know people sometimes really stress about mixing the exact color and then matching it, but I'd rather have it a little different each time. Most things that you're painting and most things in nature are going to be a little variety. That's kind of a weird shaped foot. That one got kind of weird. Let's see. I think I need to reshape that a little bit. It's kind of big, but it'll be fine. It could be laying a different way. I think I would like to put one more coat to have this a little more solid coverage. It's drying pretty good, so I'm just going to pop on another coat. You can see I'm grabbing sometimes blue, actually sometimes green. We really don't even need the green. We could just use the blue and yellow. That would give us the green as well. I tend to paint dark to light. I like it so that when I go to put a light on, it really pops. So most times I go darker, and sometimes I wish I had even gone darker. So I'm trying to keep that in mind sometimes when I'm painting things. Just a quick little second coat. I don't mind if it's a little bit streaky, but I want to get some nice coverage so I can get a nice lighter green and almost like a little yellow on these guys after. So their little turtle bodies are covered there. I want that to dry before I start adding in some highlights and shading. So what I can do in the meantime is sort of fill in their little shells. What I'm going to do, you could almost paint the whole thing and then put colors in, but I want to preserve where the little markings are just to make it easier for myself. So what I do is I'm going to just did it kind of with a blue. I think maybe I'm going to use my blue, and I don't mind that there's some green in it or whatnot, but I think what I'm going to do, I don't really worried about these sections here. These are pretty easy. So let's just paint that kind of a blue. Again, I'm using my flat brush because I like that I could go and get a wide stroke, or I can use it on the thin chisel edge. So if that's what you're comfortable with, if you're more comfortable with outlining it with a more of a round brush, you can certainly do that too, and then fill it in. Let me find my blue paint is over here. Just a little more blue. And again, see this blue without even watering down is a little transparent on here, and I really like the way that looks. So I'm not gonna put a second coat. I like the way that looks. The shells aren't perfect. I'm not worried about it being the same thickness on one side or the other. I did make it a little bit of a point here, like that's where the tail is. And just so I know now where things are, I may just follow the shape. This is just a little base coat, leave a little bit of a white edge between. I think this might work just to make it. If you want to paint the whole thing blue and then go and trace on top of it, but I think this is an easier way. So I'm just kind of putting it, leaving myself just little clues maybe. Where the little separation is. I kind of stylize these. They may not be exactly how the markings are on their shells, but it doesn't really matter because they are turtles. They read as turtles. Sometimes I'll look up a lot of reference photos on things and really sketch and get it just right, but then I go from memory a little bit when I'm painting it, and just if something, even if it's real, but it doesn't look right to my eye or it doesn't work with the pattern or the design, I change things up. So that gives you just an idea of where the turtle little sections are for the shell. I think it just make it a little easier. Like I said, these ones I'm not worried. Those are just little slashes we can put in almost anywhere. Little tail bit. And it's just a little base coat. And I'll be putting other colors on top, but I'm going to start with the darker blue. Charlie, did you paint the big floral yet? I can't remember.
Uh, yeah, but it did not work out. You know, I I get ahead of myself sometimes. And so I wound up using it for the background too and under the sea painting.
Oh, cool. I've done that.
I'll try it again.
It's kind of like, just think of it like almost as like the one petal at a time. I got ahead of myself and tried to do too many sometimes, and then the paint dries and it's really a pain. That happened with my big butterfly paint, moth painting. I got most of it done and I was practically done, but then I had company and then I had my niece and then we had a trip. And when I got back to it, I'm like, I couldn't even paint. It's like, I don't even know what I was doing. It looked good before, but I don't even know. And so then I stopped and I went and did like each petal, each bit of grass, painted it, shaded it, and highlighted, and then moved to the next. Because of the acrylics, I tried to do too many and I just couldn't get the paint to budge. So if it was oils, I'd have been okay. But with the acrylics, I really was better when I stopped and went back and just did a little bit at a time, not trying to get them all done at once. If it's something like this, I want it to be dry and I can go back to each section and give it a highlight and a shadow. But with those grasses, I was doing an awful lot of blending. So
Mhm.
this one, I'm going to do some side loading. So a couple of ways, and you guys that have been with me know these couple of methods I use, but I always like to go over it. To make something flat, these look pretty flat now. We want it to appear three-dimensional. And here they do, because they've got some dark and I've got some lights. So it's a matter of darks and lights, highlights and shadows. But to achieve it in acrylic paint is hard sometimes because you don't want it maybe to be looking like a paint by number with a dark slash and a light slash and a middle tone in the middle. So I would either work on one piece at once and really blend it as wet and wet, or sometimes like this, I'm going to use kind of like a one stroke. I don't know if you've done much of the one stroke methods, but I am going to just wet a flat brush. Just usually I want a little cleaner water, but it doesn't matter here. We're not using white. I don't want the brush dripping. I'll tap it off. I want it to be wet, but not dripping. And then I can take a dark. So maybe I'll take my Payne's Gray, just whichever one is my paint right here, just on the corner of that brush. And then I pat it out a little bit, and that allows me, that's a little too wet, to go in where I want and in one stroke really get a shadow. I might say, look at that and say, okay, I need it to be a little wider. I'll just grab more paint. But because it's so wet, it's almost given me a nice blend without getting wet green again and then wet paint gray and then blending. I just go where I want my shadows. And it's a little bit of a trick, but if you practice it a little bit, just grabbing a little color on one side, pat it out so you have a little blend there. And if you don't like it, it's wet paint. You can just wipe it off with a paper towel now, really. So I'm going to do just right now a shadow where the shell is covering over the head and flippers. So I will shade a little more, but for now I just want to shade there. When I shade down the side, I'd rather have this dry so I'm not dragging that paint into it. So right now I'm just going to go right around the shell. I probably will have to bring the blue out of that guy a little bit there, but that's where the shadow is going to go. And I can keep dipping into it and making it a little wider if I need to. And because there's so much water in there, it could very well dry and be just too light. And then when it's dry, I'll just heavier paint and do it a little bit again. But you can kind of see it's kind of a nice blend. It's not perfect, but it's works. And then I'm going to go down one side. So sometimes you're painting something that has a real actual light source. So the lights of the sun is shining from here. And so you know this side, the right side of your objects will be light and your left will be dark. It's kind of like a little bit of a not like a rule, but kind of the way I would do it. But if nothing is, this is really no light source. So no one's going to look at it and say, oh, you've shaded here or not there or whatever. As long as you have a dark and a light side, and then I really kind of, with a little texture on my brush, just kind of patted in those yellows so that I didn't want it to be a perfect blend. I've got the roughness of the canvas, but I also like a little bit of almost like a little bit of a mottled look. I did that on my oranges that I just painted. I went with a mop brush kind of and just with a light paint dabbed on the highlight so that it gave that texture of orange a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead now with, every few strokes when I find I need to, I just wet the brush, take a little more of the, see, I can almost tell there that it's almost too much water. So I can just pat it on my paper towel, just the tiniest bit, just to absorb some. And I'm going to go down, it looks like I went along the bottom side of these guys for my shadow. More of a decorative painting kind of technique, which I did for years and taught for years. And I do love, and just lends itself well to some of these more whimsical paintings, as opposed to like we're trying to paint a real turtle. And I try to do a little bit of everything with you guys. So sometimes we have things that look a little bit more realistic. And then sometimes it's just fun to play around. And I love to do some of these more like, sometimes they start off as digital illustrations that I do, and then I turn them into paintings. And I'm doing Payne's gray here. I don't think I would like it if it was black. It would just be real dull. This is Payne's gray, so it's more of a blue black, I guess you'd say. If I just had black and you don't have Payne's gray, just mix a little of your blue with your black and you get the same idea. And then we'll do the same thing as this, only with a lighter shade on the other side. I've got just one little bit to go. And this sort of a shading and highlighting technique you can use on a lot of paintings if you just need some lights and darks. Sometimes, like on this one, for instance, I almost made it not such a watery light, but can you see I almost took a lighter brush stroke and just put it down the side. I wanted it to stand out, so it really is a line there. But on these guys, I just like that soft blend I'm getting. So I'm going to clean my brush now because I want to get a little lighter on those outside edges. And I'm going to mix up a lighter green. And I just want a little pile of lighter green so I can dip that brush into it. I can't really mix when I'm doing that. So I'm going to just make a little bit of a lighter green that is enough for me to dip the corner of my brush into, hopefully. So I will rinse it off because I want, the reason I wet the brush is so that on one side it's just clear, just water. but the water blends well with the pigment on the other side and gives me a little bit of a blend. You can always, while it's wet, with a soft brush, work it in a little bit if your blend isn't perfect. So I'm just, same thing, a wet brush, but with some light. I just kind of tap it off. Light paint might be too light and I might have to do it a few times, but I can just kind of go right down there. And I need it a little bit to show up a little better. So I think sometimes when a yellow especially or an orange is not showing up well, I need to add a little white to that mixture. The white really makes the pigment a little more opaque. So if you're ever trying to cover a dark background, you're painting an orange or a yellow flower, paint it white first, and then you can go in and get nice coverage. So I'm just mixing up a pile, but I want to get a little white into that. And you'll see the difference that it makes. I hate wasting all that paint, but anyway. So wet brush, a little of this light green. And I think it's going to show up much better now because it has that white in it. And it looks pretty blended to me on the screen there. But if you need to blend a little more, I just kind of take the brush and I'm almost going to hit it with the side that doesn't have any pigment in it. And I can just sort of soften it. Or you could just have another brush handy standing by to just soften. As long as you get it done when the paint's wet, you can soften it as much as you'd like. I can feel like I'm running out of paint there, so I'm gonna just go right into more. You'll get the feel after a while. Too much paint, too little paint, the paint's dragging, you need a little more water. And I'm gonna still go back and, like I said, get the little bit lighter on the tops. But for now, we've got just each side of those legs and head. One side dark, one side light. And I'm gonna show you after what I mean when I do that little wash of the yellow, because I think a little glaze on top here with that yellow would be kind of cool. It's looking too dark to me almost, but I'm gonna go right over afterwards and lighten that up. Again, I'd rather start too dark. I tend to shy away from too dark sometimes and then wish I had gone darker. You can always lighten up. I have a little smudge there, but remember, acrylic paint, you can fix anything. I'm not gonna worry about it. So, now you can see it looks like it has form anyway. It's not as bright as I want because I want this to be really a more fun painting, but it is getting a little form. And I said, oh, don't worry about some of the white showing here, but I don't like it as a blotch there. So I'm just going to take the watered down paint that we were using and just sort of touch that up.
I was wondering if that was just me.
No, I didn't think it would matter. If it was like with the shape of it, it wouldn't bug me, but that just being like a rectangle was kind of annoying me. So there we have it. Okay, so I want to get a little lighter. You see it on the jacket even a little better. I have this to start with, which is great, but then I can really go in now and lighten up a little bit. I'm going to dab in a light green and then almost a little bit of a lighter on the edge where we did the light green already. But I want to get it a little bit more texture. And you know what? I've been using a little bit of these mop brushes lately. They're nice sometimes if I can find it. It's kind of a soft brush like this. Looks like a mop, like a makeup brush on most, but sometimes I like to just dab in with that. Let's try that. Let's see. I want it to be lighter, so I need a little more white in there. And again, so many things we don't know till we put it on. Is it too light? Is it too dark? I put the paint on, but I am going to dry it off on my paper. I'd rather go super light and have it barely show and then get it a little more brighter. That's almost a little too bright for me to start. Let's see. Get just a little brighter on this, but I like the texture that I'm getting. You might want to just do it much softer and not so much texture, but I think the turtles have that kind of splotchy. Hardly showing up here, which then I can take a little more bright if I need to, but I'd rather start where it hardly shows up. That really shows up, but if I just dry that brush off and really pounce it, I can get it to blend. This is a fine line where, is it too much? Is it not enough? And a lot of times it dries and it softens in a little bit, then you have to go back. But they're starting to get a little texture now. This one's looking a little dark still, so another tip is to step back. I'm sitting here painting, it's hard, but if you're not at the easel where you can step back, do set it up and step back a lot, because then it will really be telling. I want to lift this up a little bit. This is my little easel here tonight, my gesso. Now I'm gonna get brighter, so I need more yellow. Small little baby steps getting to build up those colors. This is a place where you could use a medium too, if you wanted to put something in there that I've been experimenting with, a retarder, which keeps, slows your paint down a little bit for drying, and got this from Donna Dewberry. I love her. She's the one stroke, flower lady who's amazing. And this is a floating medium that she uses to do just what I was showing you with your water on your brush and color on the corner. She would load the brush with the floating medium and then the color. But sometimes I like it because it just sort of slows my drying time a little bit and just helps to blend. But I'm just gonna get right in the middle of the head because that's kind of the very top and that would be the brightest. Now, I don't want it to look like, oh, a little oval right there. I would just kind of bring it out a little bit. See, I'm just kind of softening in it and it's not looking quite so much just like a little small area. I'm going a little bit more towards the outside edge that I have the light side on. And I know it's just not enough in some of these areas, but I'd rather do it slowly. Build it up slowly. And actually, having the paint very dry and not blending well works for the texture because it's picking up the texture of the canvas, if you can almost see it. And it gives me a turtle texture that I like. The brighter I want to get it, take a little more of the white to my yellow. I'm not going to go as much, but I could do some just little taps of a really bright, just in a few places. And that's what I do. I just build it up till I think it's enough. And many times, like I say, it just sort of dries a little too much and then, oh, you can't really see it anymore. You can get as bright as you want there. I'm gonna come back later, like I said, with just the yellow and do a little bit of just the glaze on there, but a little bit yellow now too. Maybe just a little bit that side. Again, we can come back and do this anytime. So if we look at it a little later and we decide, oh, geez, it doesn't really pop, we can do it. But that's the texture I like on the little turtles. We need to give put their eyes in because even though they're little dots, brings them to life. And you can do that, like I said, on these guys, just the back end of a brush if you want. And that's where I am going to use the real black, just for the eyes. I put them right on the side of their head. That one grew a little, so I'm going to just take a clean brush with some water and just get the shape back again. I just sort of smudged it with that brush. They're even going to have a little tiny white highlights. I know they're teeny, but it still brings them kind of alive. Get that back to round, kind of round anyway. And that's all they really need for features because we're not gonna put anything else on them. And again, we'll come back with a little glaze of the light color. But any shades of green you wanted to use really would work as long as you get a little brighter on one side, a little darker on the other. I might put a little wash of blue on there afterwards too. Just it looks just a little blackish to me still. So I might put a little blue on there. We'll fool around with that. But let's hop on over to the little shells. And I am going to use my square brush and I'm going my flat and I'm going to do these three bigger areas on the top and I'll work my way out. And these guys, I sort of shaded a little bit like we did. I'm taking just that dark blue. So let's do this guy on the left. So I'm going to give just a little bit of a darker shade to one side. Just to start. Why don't we do that? I'm gonna do that. And again, it's like, oh, I didn't really come out far enough. I could go in and kind of do it a little bit more. Might do both of them at the same time, because this is really just a wash. I don't have to worry about blending it. And that came in less of a little wash from the side of my brush than more of just a big brush stroke. But it's gonna stay wet for a little while. I can just take this dry brush and just soften it. So it kind of is just a little quicker for me to kind of lay down the color with the side of the brush, dry off the brush if I need to, and then soften it in. I'm almost don't have much for water on there. But you'd have to work a little fast because you don't want that to dry. And I'm going to do that to some of the other little bits. So the little shell around the little edge there, I'd like to shade it along this side here. So I'm going to just take the same, do the same thing, but I want it to be a little darker. Maybe even a little bit of Payne's gray in there. I don't want it too dark, but I want it a little darker, almost like a Prussian blue, if you had a Prussian blue. And I just want to cast that shadow around there. And like I said, many times I start, it's too light, and I just need to go back and deepen it, which I can always do second time around. But don't get overwhelmed by the little detail on the shell. Just do a little step at a time.
Mhm.
That's a little shadow around there. These guys are getting shaded on the side. I might do a little shadow on this side coming up as well. I can leave a little bit to that white showing because I'm going to go back with white at the end and outline that a bit. But it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to leave the perfect line or cover it. It's fine. Almost like a little shadow on both sides. And these little areas, these little shapes, it's not so much of really where a shadow would be. It's more just to give little bits of different colors and things so that each one is just a little different. I think I might have gone up to on some of them and just did some shading. And we're going to do some of the greens on top as well, but that just kind of separates them a little bit. The dark blue, if you think it's not covering a little bit of Payne's gray, and then shade on some of the sides of these guys. I am not sticking to like one side or another, but just looks a little darker in some places, and sometimes it does need a little bit of that Payne's gray just to deepen it up. There. And I've still got my little divider, so I can very easily tell where the separation is. And now I just want to get some of the other colors in, pretty much the colors that we used in the water. So I might take some blue and green again, little white with it so I get more of an aqua. And I can just kind of here and there hit that. It's not really with any rhyme or reason. It's just a dab in some different colors on the shell. A little bit of green can go in there. And mixing all the colors from the colors that we've already used makes it so they really stay a little cohesive. It's not like you're bringing in a strange color now. Like when I said if you could do pinks or purples and that sort of thing, you would have started with those and used those. I wouldn't introduce those colors now. I'm using a little white sometimes with those teals. I'm going to go a little more white later to actually highlight the shell so it looks a little shiny almost, but right now I just want some of these teals and whatnot. Now, if you don't have the phthalo green and blue, and you're just using your regular colors, which is fine, I just cannot get teals and things by mixing in the deco art, but there's plenty of deco art colors that do have teals and whatnot. So if you have those, same thing, you're just gonna just dab little bits of them here and there. So here's a nice little teal that they have. Almost not even blending it too much. I almost want to kind of put it on and leave it. I'd like to have see the brush strokes a little bit on this sort of thing. So I'm doing teals, I'm doing lime greens, I'm doing any of these little colors that we've been using for the water or the body. We can do a nice little bit of a lime green. And it just carries through. And you know what I should have been doing on as I do this? Let's do some little bits coming in sort of from the edge that'll be on those little outside bits of the shell. I could have done that with any of those colors. So I will go back now and, you know, get some of this going on here. These I'm just doing with the flat brush, kind of pull them in, kind of the shape of the edge of the shell there. Oops, I didn't mean to put this guy off camera. Sorry about that. A little light blue. I don't really like that light blue that's out of the jar. I'd rather mix the blue and white. It kind of shows up a little brighter, this sort of thing. It's funny how it's different. I also use that metallic colors too here a little bit. The Deco Art metallic. Really only use it in this color. This is a teal. We'll add some of that in there too. Got a little Payne's gray on that. I don't know how, but we'll lighten that up maybe. So it's really just dabbing on some colors. I kind of lost some of the real darks, so I'll go back in. If it's too brush strokey for you, dry off your brush and you can just soften it a little bit. But I just don't want to blend all the colors together. Then you just have a big mass, one of these shapes with kind of a middle shade of teal. I'd rather put it down a little bit and then leave it. So you see green, you see blue, you see teals. Beautiful teals, like I say, when you have these two colors mixed. And I do want to get a little lighter in places. If you see on these edges, I'm not carefully putting one stripe in between each. I'm just sort of putting it down. Sometimes it covers a color I did, which will layer it and make it just a little slightly different color. And I want to start getting a little brighter in some spots, mostly on the top ones here. I'm going to kind of just do lighter. I'm maybe going to go to sort of on the right side of that. And even brighter than that. So I'm going to take Dirty Brush right into white. I want it to stand out a little bit, those white bits. And I like to see the little strokes. I think that's fine. So I've got my dark kind of on the top three sections of that shell. The dark was kind of on the left side. I'm going to go over to the right side here now and just some little strokes. Look at how that turtle already, the shell's just right there, is just coming alive with that. So let's get some of that light down here around the shell, here and there. It might almost be a little, I'm not going to get into like doing just the edges. I don't think we need to, because we're going to take a white line after. Right, so let's get some of these guys light too. So is it pretending that, well, they aren't pretending, but these three shapes are on the top. So under here, I might just do a little, because it's dark there, I do the little light there. Nice contrast. Once you do the white, put it on and see if it's bright enough. I'd rather go, like I say, I'm going a little lighter, but it's really blending a little bit on me. I kind of like to go with straight white and just do a few dabs on top. Again, you can still see the strokes that I put on of the lime green. You can see some of the dark blue strokes. If I lose those, I go back and just throw some in. This looks like it's just a little too much there. I'm just gonna take my colors here now. That looks like it's just too much. I need to put a little color in there. Step back and look. These are just cute little turtles. Don't get too, you know, crazy about them. Just dabbing in the colors is enough. And again, we can put a little bit of a yellow glaze. Actually, this yellow is, I like the way this yellow is kind of just adding a little something to them. See how quickly I'm doing it? Because if I think about it too much and get too precise, it's just not gonna look as random as a natural turtle shell would look. Just dab and go, dab and go. And I'm going to put on some, I'm gonna try some of that metallic. It doesn't show up a lot, but it has a little sheen to it. So I do like some of these Deco Art metallics. I have the silver and gold and I have a few little colors. This is gonna really be shaken up because it's kind of separating. Any questions, you guys? You're also quiet. And Pam, you're painting along, I think, right?
Yeah, but I put 3 turtles on here, so I'm really having to zoom along here.
All right, sometimes that's better than you're not thinking about it too much and making it too more complicated than it needs to be. I think I'll just go to a little smaller square brush now for some of this. I've been loving this brush. It doesn't look like it has a good tip, but I know I said it last time, but it's just a let's see, I bought some new ones and I can read it. I forget, is it Langnickel or Royal Langnickel? And they're clear handles. They come this way. And I think they're only like around $5 at Michael's, but I love because this has such a long tip, I can do some nice shapes with it as opposed to something with a short tip. So it's kind of a nice brush. Every time I go, I pick up a couple because I just want to have them. So this is, you guys probably can't see it too much on your end. It's just this teal, but it is metallic. So I just kind of like the way it looks here and there. We will have glitter on this guy's shell too, so it's not like a big deal, but. And I think I should probably, it looks pretty dull and dark. I didn't get as many colors in this part of the shell as I should. So let's just fill in a little bit more here. This guy especially, I really ignored this little bit. Get some light in here. And a little bit of lighter blue, and that'll be enough. Again, there's nothing here that we can't come back and address too. I do want to tighten up my little white lines for the shell, so I'm just going to use my liner brush. I'm going to get clean white paint as best I can. And I really want to thin it down because I want to be able to make a lot of strokes at once and not have to go back and load my paint constantly. That's what's good about the liner brushes. You can get a nice long, few long strokes. I did not paint it perfectly and try to get like every section. I sort of started and stopped. So it's not a perfect outline. Up here, I kind of want to get back to something that just sort of divides this up. But can you see I'm not struggling going right around? I'm just going to see where those lines go and just sort of do that. And I think, do I need to, this little line here, let's see, my guy. I think sometimes if they were long, I would almost do something like this sometimes. I'll go around the outside edge, but again, I'm not trying to make a perfect line. I'm almost stopping and starting. That way, no one's looking for the perfect line. And it's a little wonky, which is fine. If the paint, because I've thinned it down, sort of blends in with the background and it doesn't show, you could second coat it here and there, not everywhere. You don't want it to, again, look like you outlined it with a pen. But you can go back and deepen up some of those lines, brighten up some of those lines if you need to. And again, it's all personal preference. Whatever you like the look of goes. I really am curious now to try some of these in other colors. This is the little spot where earlier I had the shell needed to be extended a little. Let me do that now. This leg it's the green of the leg is in there too much. So I'm just going to bring that little bit of the shell out a little bit. And that line more out here.
Okay. I'll be right there. Cheryl, I have to go,
All right, Pam. Well, thanks for popping in.
but I'll catch the rest on the recording.
Yep, and I'll do a little bit. You probably know how to wire too, but I'm just going to show you how I wire. So have a good
Yeah,
night.
Good too.
And I'll see you next week, hopefully.
Sounds good.
Okay,
right.
bye.
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 Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Sometimes if it's not something that has to be perfect, I'd rather go a little quicker and not fuss with it. So you can see I am really being a little bit loose here. A lot of that is just the canvas that we left too, so I'm using that as a guide, but I'm not trying to fill it in all the bits and pieces with white perfectly. I might even add a little bit more there. And I do some little lines across here. Oh, I didn't do this little line across the shell here, so let's do that. And with all these light, nice bright highlights on the shell, I really want to get a little bit brighter yellowy white on the turtle himself too. So I missed some of this over here. I'm not sure how. And again, I see the white is kind of drying and sinking in. I'm gonna want a little bit of it to be a little brighter. Which just is acrylic paint. You just have to, oops, go and make another coat sometimes. I add water as I need to because I know it thins it a little bit and I might have to do another coat, but I want it to flow nicely. I don't want to have the paint dragging. That's when you get into getting really thick brush strokes, when you're looking for a nice thin one. If your paint's thin and flows, you're better off. And as your paint dries on the palette, as you're painting, you need to thin it out sometimes too. So we'll go back and touch up if we need to in some places. But let me give a little wash. And when I say a wash or a glaze, it's really clean water, which this is not, but you could have some. I try to keep 1 cup of clean water and use the dark colors in the other, but it doesn't always work. And it's not going to show up too much, but if you have just a little bit of water in that yellow, you can see almost a little bit on the recording. See how it gives it just a little, it just works with this yellow when I'm going over greens. It just gives it a little glow that I really like. So I'm going over the whole leg with just a little wash of yellow, even on the green parts and the dark parts. It just, you can almost see the difference of this one it's transparent, but it gives it a nice glow. And I'm still going to lighten up some of the edges, but I want to do this little glaze wash first. And I'm going to get just a little brighter on my edges. I'm going to look carefully now. The dark sides look a bit dark to me, and I thought I might come back with just a little bit of a blue wash on those, just to make it a little more of a blue than just that dark. Just taking a little of the phthalo blue water down into where I had some darks. That's traveled in the middle a little bit, but I'll go back and lighten it up. And I want to get a little brighter on the opposite side. So again, it's great for acrylics because you can come back and you can adjust things that you think need it. I'm going to get a little bit of white into this, almost just white here. Let's see. I want to get just a little bit here and there of a brighter. So it's really just the yellow, which is a bit green tinted now because it's just kind of dirty, and a little white. And it doesn't have to be everywhere, but if I see something's just a little too dark or right in the middle, I want a little bit. If the edge isn't as bright as I'd like. I'm almost just brushing it on here, not even worrying about the side loading. I'm just sort of brushing it on. Again, as many coats as you need. While I have colors on my brush from one thing, I might put it over somewhere else a little bit just to carry that through. Not sure I love that big glob of yellow there, but maybe a little bit. just kind of carries it through. I'll take some colors that where even they don't belong on something if I'm using it in one place. And I don't really think I need to do any of those white lines over on the shell. This was something was bugging me. Oh, it kind of looks like it didn't end, so I'll just connect that a little bit. Yeah, so what do you think? Oh, the little tiny white highlights, because the eyes look dull and you hardly see them. So just a little white dot in the eyes. And now they kind of show up a little better. And that's as much as you have to do. I want to maybe put a few more of the lines. I put some white lines here. You can't even see them really now. So let's just get a little darker on those. I'll use more pigment. And I might just do, they don't even have to be connecting. They could start and stop.
Now, if you're wanting to make those look like they're under the water, how do you do that?
You
I
could,
mean,
you could almost, I wonder if you just did some of the lines like this.
would you like do a wash over it or something? Or
Yeah, I don't know if I like it just the lines. You could,
I ain't wanting to
really
mess yours up. I'm just
No.
wondering.
I don't know if I would do much over it. It would just it would almost like fog it up or just dull it down, you know? I
Uh-huh.
think that it's because this is more whimsical, and even this one, the little guy's clearly underwater, but I didn't put anything over him except for like some little reeds and things. I do kind of
Mhm.
like the little dots I did, like little water bubbles, which could be
Yeah.
fun. That might be fun. Maybe I'll try some of those, but let me just get a little bit. Yeah, so even on my big under the sea, I didn't worry about like the waters I know in the background, but I think it was fine. I did some little dabs of that metallic in the water too. I just did just that metallic-y paint. Like I said, I also used that slick paint. I don't know if I will on this. I like to use it on fabric, but it could be used on canvas too.
They're super cute.
Yeah, Cheryl, I'm glad you fixed that turtle on the right because it looked like you had made a roll of dough and went around the outside of it when you had it so dark.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah, you have to, like, you have to keep looking at it, and
Yeah,
like even now, I think it might almost need a few more white highlights. I've kind of lost them. I really like doing a little bit brighter on the tops, just here and there, like it's almost like a reflection. Isn't
well,
like
at least now to me it looks like a turtle shell.
Good.
Before it was the top part was set down in there instead of smoothing over to the thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes just little touches make the difference.
Well, I
didn't-
think it's amazing for people who, like me, who don't paint a whole bunch, though, to watch somebody like you just take it and here's a flat thing and then to give it that 3D effect.
And that's the thing, we're just trying to fool the viewer's eye, and it's pretty simple by just darks and lights. I mean, when you get into
Yeah.
some other paintings and still lifes and florals, you want a lot of values. But it's basically darks and lights still. These are simpler, but we still, dark and light just makes it look a little bit more, the head looks a little more rounded. I mean, I could fuss with these guys all night, but it's a simple painting. Like, I don't know if I love the way that looks, just kind of almost too outlined. So if I go to bed tonight and come back and look at it tomorrow, it looks perfectly fine, but sometimes you have to just step away and give some time to it too. It really does help. It's almost like the fairies come in and kind of fix it up
Yeah.
at night. Yeah. I sometimes like to on a green use a light blue, sometimes even to highlight. So instead of just all white, I might use a little bit of light blue, which is kind of here and there, kind of gives you a nice look. Actually, I like that look of just getting a little bit of that color, using colors that I've used in other places. Kind of a little surprise of that. And I think that could be pretty much done. If I wanted the texture, I'm not sure I do, of the, you know, these guys, it kind of does work a little bit. Let's try it.
But
It's
right there on the guy on the right-hand side, right by his eyeball,
this
is a
one
white streak. Yep, yep,
right
that
here.
white streak is killing me.
Let me find some paint that's wet still. Yeah, just there, maybe.
There you go.
Actually, you could do as much of that little line work as you like. This a little bit there.
And there, back there on his little hind end leg back there.
This one here.
Yeah, right in there. It's
Good
got
eye
too much
skill.
for, yeah.
You good eyes.
Look how cute that looks now.
But these little, I don't know, I might just do some of this for texture. Let's see. And it's just. No, it does make a mess sometimes, but. It just gives a little dimension. It's almost, not that it's a mixed media piece, but it does give you some. And this, the only two I usually use is the iridescent. So I have that and I had a white iridescent. Let's see.
Do you find, Cheryl, when you, or people who have gone to craft shows, do you find that you sell more when you use that gallery wrapped canvas than if you just have the regular size, you
If
know,
I
little
have a
half inch?
regular size, it would have to be framed. I don't like to sell it that way. It would have to be framed. So I would use the gallery wrapped. It keeps from having to me to frame something.
Right,
So that's what I mostly do. When you get them on sale, you can get a good price when they have that 70% off this style, or buy one, get three free or something crazy. Buy one, get three free.
yeah.
I stock up. On these little ones, they come in like a pack of 9. And then the 6x6 come in a pack of 4. And you hardly know they're on the shelf. So many people have no idea they're at Michael's, but because they're on the shelf with these thick canvases in their little packs, and you think they're just one big canvas. So that is the time to stock up, is when they have the sale.
Yeah,
And I'm
That's
gonna,
adorable.
yeah, I'm gonna put some glitter because these guys need glitter. I love, like I said, I would never use that loose glitter stuff, but this is kind of, it just dries clear, you can kind of see it, but it gives a little shine to it. And then I will give a varnish over the rest because I do like to have it a little shinier. And I just put it, you can put it just on the shell or just on the body in the shell.
when you varnish, do you varnish with a brush or a sponge brush?
I use a sponge brush. Only because I don't want to wreck a regular brush. I mean, if you wash it out quick enough, it's not going to ruin it. But yeah, I just use the sponge brushes. And you really, if you tip it to the side in the light, you can see where you missed. I just have a painting I did, and I actually had it in a show. And now that I brought it home, I see I missed a spot. So I was probably doing it in a hurry. And again, sometimes I don't. If the paint is kind of has shine to it, I don't bother. It doesn't have to have a finish. It's when I want to brighten up the colors or give a shine to it. I might do it on the body too. It's not so much that it's obscuring the design. It's just a little sparkle that you can kind of almost notice. It's not too much, I don't think.
I don't think you need any varnish on that one.
No, I don't know. Maybe I want to have the water stay dull and have the turtle shiny too. So I'll like to look at that in the light tomorrow and decide.
Yeah,
We'll make the big decision tomorrow.
yeah.
I'll probably touch up the sides a little more, but that's basically all we need to do for this. Can you see it's very
Those are just too
the brush
cute.
strokes.
Yeah, those are as sweet as they can be. I like that.
And I can see now where I have missed spaces with that, but that's okay. I'm gonna dry it. This is gonna be a tough one. I'm gonna pull a different canvas out to wire because this is gonna, the tulip paint is gonna stay wet for a little bit. So let me just put it to dry and I'll show you quickly. We'll wire something up here. We'll do a square because it doesn't matter which way it goes, but whatever I want to use it for later. And I can share the link, and if I don't, remind me, but there's a little kit I get on Amazon that has all of the pieces I need for wiring.
Right.
Let me bring the camera up a little bit so you can kind of.
And the one you're fixing to wire now, is that a gallery wrap canvas?
Yep.
Would you do the same thing for the smaller canvases?
For the small tiny ones, like a 4x4, sometimes I would just not even put it back on it because they can kind of leave it on a shelf or something. Or
No, I'm talking about if I was gonna do like a regular
Oh,
canvas.
I do it the
The
same
student
way. I'm
grade.
gonna do now. Yeah, same way. Let me just tighten
Oh,
this.
okay.
Yeah, I do it the same way on a 3/4 inch or 1/2 inch, whatever that is.
And then you just hook it to the frame with one of those little step down things.
There was a frame. Let me grab a framed piece here and I'll show you how I do that one as well. That's a little different. Let me grab that. I use panels mostly. I use panels mostly when I'm painting something that's going in a frame. And this will be good because you know what happened is when I was leaving this off after the plein air event, I discovered I forgot my point gun. And so I, oops, taped on the panel. So if I was doing something in a frame, get all this up, you wouldn't be taping it, but that's all I had in the car. But that's why I like a panel. I will work in panels when I'm plein air painting because they're small, they fit in my kit easily, and they fit on my easel. My plein air easel doesn't really take. I could put a gallery wrapped on there, but it doesn't stay as well. So I would just take panels with me when I'm painting.
And
And
you go ahead and you have those painted on the
Base
front.
coated.
I do. I have the pink on there already just before I start usually. But this is just dropped in. So this is just a canvas panel just dropped in. Let me move this one. And this wiring is what I'm going to show you how I do it. And I do it on frames or canvases if there's no frame. This is a point gun. You probably won't really need one. But when I'm doing these things, it just makes it so much easier as I just do the, you know, when you buy frames, just do they have these little things in them? This is how they put them
Mhm.
in. I just and I just, you know, just that holds the frame in. And what you would want to do probably is before you put the wire on, you could get just brown craft paper. Just put some glue on the edge and cut it to fit. It just finishes the back of the canvas off nicely. Just plain old craft paper, just glued on, and then I would put the wire on top. I can't do that when I'm out at a plein air event, but it's kind of given that these things are coming right off the easel. But if it was a nice painting and you were putting it in a show or something, I would do that. So the little kit comes with all of the doodads you need. It comes with the and it's like $6.95, right, Charlotte? Did you get yours?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so it comes with these little brackets, comes with the screws, comes with the wire. It comes with these little crimps, which are great because all up until now I've used like masking tape to hold the wire so it doesn't poke you, and it didn't look great. I didn't even know these things existed, these little crimps. So I'm kind of glad to have ordered the little kits. And all I do is I have lost my little awl, which I love to make a hole start. So I just have a nail. And I kind of, you don't want to go halfway. The canvas is not, it'll flop forward. You need to go like, you know, I just eyeball it, but I would say like for this one, which is a 10 by 10, I'm going to go down about 3 inches there. And I'm just starting the hole just to make it easier to put the screw in. And I love that this little kit comes with everything. So I just screw these in, this little hangery thing. I used to always use eye hooks, and when they hung on the wall, they would hit the wall, and this is just lays flat on the back, so it's a really neater looking thing. I wouldn't put brown paper on any of these gallery wrapped canvases. I just use the
boy, have I been doing that wrong because I've been going on the inside of that canvas,
Oh, in here?
and poking a hole and screwing in that eye hook.
Oh, you've been probably working way harder than you have to.
Yeah,
Yeah, I couldn't get my fingers to do that with my arthritis, and so I was hoping there was a better way.
This
Yeah,
here,
I
or
to keep
the
from-
way with eye hooks, Charlotte?
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Will this work for you this way?
Yeah,
Oh, good. And then
I
the
think I
wire,
can. I think I can do that.
and if not, you could get what, you could teach Willow how to do it for you. Let me find my scissors here. So I'm just kind of eyeballing the length of the wire. I just need a little bit to wrap over on the ends. But what you need to do is these little crimps is just put it on one side first, throw it through. I just kind of wrap it around a little bit. And before I used to be doing this, and then I'd say, oh, this is kind of messy looking, and I'd put tape on it. So
Right.
I had no idea these little crimps existed, and I put that on there, and I just, with a little plier or something, just scrunch it. Oops. So it kind of covers that, and it just looks so much more professional. And really, this whole kit is like $6.95, and you could do like a bunch of paintings.
I think it's 20 paintings worth, you know.
Oh yeah, so that's not bad, really.
Oh, yeah, put the link, give us the link of what
I
the pack.
will.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna write myself a note. You know I forget things, so let me write it down. So tomorrow I want to give you a picture of the other turtle. Here's my pen. Picture of the turtle, the other one. Link for this kit on Amazon, hanging kit. Was there something else I was gonna do? If there was, remind me.
No,
So I cut this one way too long. I don't need it that long. I could just do it a little bit. And then I pull it as taut as I can. And then I just do this. And that.
see, and I've been taking that wire, pulling it up to the top to see how, for hanging.
Oh yeah, and so this is good. I don't want it to like stretch up and be over the top there.
Yeah,
And it will hang properly. So what would I say? It's about a third of the way down, maybe a little less. I
yeah.
can't really just eyeball it, and then I just measure. Sometimes I don't even have my ruler. If I'm doing it and I just take my screwdriver, I measure it with my finger and I do this. As long as it's pretty even, I think you're all right.
All right, I'm glad you did that because I did not see how I was going to be able to.
No,
I
and
was looking at it like Gail
but
for the inside of the.
yeah, no, I've never seen it done that way. I do it right here. And I used to, like I say, put the eye hooks and then they would stick out to about here, and that's
Right.
not right, but I never knew. So
No.
that's, I've been doing it up until now.
Yeah, I always put mine on the inside, and then there's a little step hook that I'd hook the frame to the canvas.
Yeah, and then you just need a hammer, a screwdriver, really. I use a little pair of pliers. You don't have to have the little ones. Anything will,
Like needle nose.
yep, anything will work for that. You don't want to use your best scissors for cutting the wire, or you might
Yeah.
have wire cutters. I probably do somewhere, but I
Yeah,
don't have scissors.
well,
So.
that's good. I do have a question though about the next one when we do talk about the plein air